So I saw this article on Vox that was getting passed around by some of the people I follow over on Substack. And while the topic is something we have been discussing as a whole, and even just us here on this channel for a few years now, something about this article, it hit me a little harder, and it hit me with a little bit of a different angle, and I just kind of want to talk about it. So I'll link it down below in a pinned comment, but the title of the article is "Everyone's a Sellout Now." And I mean, that alone gets you kind of right there. And it talks about how we're all, almost no matter what job we're in now, regardless of our salary, regardless of whether we work for ourselves or we work for a company, it's like we're expected to build a personal brand. We're supposed to build a platform online. There are like surgeons on TikTok who, you know, are maybe giving advice or just sharing a look at a day in the life, or sharing funny anecdotes about things that happen with patients that they see in the ER. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. And I do think a lot of people do create these things just out of enjoyment. I would certainly imagine if you were a surgeon earning that salary, it's not because you are looking to like have a side hustle and get income on TikTok, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's what they're doing. I don't know. But it's everywhere. We've created this pressure and put it on ourselves. And this article specifically focuses heavily on artists, especially authors and musicians, and how nowadays the sense that we get, and I think it's based in a lot of, like, there's data to back this up, the fact that if we don't have a platform, it's harder for us to get book deals and record deals. And you have to build a reputation with your future fans before you create the thing that they are going to be fans of. And that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense as any kind of marketing strategy. And yet that is the reality that we find ourselves living in. There's a quote in here from a literary agent. "Authors are writing these incredible books, and yet when they ask me questions, the thing that keeps them up at night is, how do I create this brand? It's not that they want to be spending their time doing it, it's that they feel like they have to. I think that millennials and Gen Xers really feel like sellouts. It's not what they imagine their career to look like. It inherently feels wrong with their value system." And the article goes on to say, because self-promotion sucks. It's very boring and not that fun to produce TikTok videos or to learn email marketing for this purpose. Hardly anyone wants to build a platform. We just want to have one. And I very much feel that. Like, I do enjoy YouTube. And that's why I keep doing it. I am not doing this to market my books. I don't expect this to do anything for marketing. And while I did put some work into creating a brand for this channel in the early days, I really just don't anymore at all. And I think the thing that really kind of flipped something inside me when I read this piece is that I can see it not just from an author or creator perspective, but also from a reader or consumer perspective. There's been a lot of talk over the last several years. I mean, this has been going on for a while as well, where people just want authenticity. We want to connect with someone. We respond the most when people on social media are being real, you know, whether that's opening up about something that seems embarrassing or private or just really personal, even just sharing photos of themselves that aren't filtered or where, if, you know, they're not wearing makeup or they're not, you know, and we respond to that. And that's already led to this kind of weird come around where manufactured authenticity is now a thing. And you have vloggers and people on social media who are setting up what are in fact pretty elaborate photo shoots or video shoots where they come in and act authentic. But we see through, we've learned to see through that as well. As consumers, we're constantly, I feel like we're just begging for people to be real with us. But as creators, we're seeing that this is what gets the response, and so we're manufacturing it, and therefore it's not really real anymore. That was quite the ramble. But I don't know, it's really bothering me. Oh man, I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but I want to talk about sponsorships for a second. I've never had a sponsor in this video, on this channel. I've had like maybe a dozen or so people, companies, whatever, reach out. Most of them wouldn't be good fits anyway because they had nothing to do with what I talk about here. Like, I'm not going to try to sell you guys perfume, but a couple of them have been very relevant to writing, to ghostwriting, and just like a freelance lifestyle. But I have it on my YouTube channel, on my YouTube page, like, I don't do sponsorships. So if they reach out, I just don't respond because it's out there that I don't want to do that. I'm not saying I would never do that, but I have absolutely no intention of taking a sponsorship right now, in the foreseeable future. And the reason is not because I look down on that. I mean, if other people are building, like, if they're trying to turn their channels, their social media presence into a source of income, people live off this stuff. I mean, and I must say, make significantly more money than I do at anything, so good for them. I don't have a problem with that at all. And I'm not really bothered by sponsorships or ads in videos. I mean, you will see ads on my videos because I do get that little bit of Google ad revenue or whatever. But the idea for me, I know if I signed a contract and said, okay, this company is going to pay me XYZ, if I insert a segment into a video where I talk about and promote a product, I'm not going to want to turn on the camera. Like, you guys know, I go through periods where I don't upload a video for weeks or even months. And the last thing I want to do is to kill my love for what I do here on YouTube with a sponsorship. And so that's why I'm not going to do it. I know that it would make me burn out, like, immediately. I wouldn't want to do it. And I know companies like to work in sponsorships as naturally as possible. And I personally think I am too awkward of a human to work it in without it just being blatantly like, hey guys, I'm making money off of this. Sorry, you have to sit here and listen to it. I just don't think I could do it. Here's the thing that's really been bothering me though with sponsorships is I've had it happen twice in the last probably like 6 months, I'll say, where it was 2 different YouTubers I follow, not AuthorTube, not anything to do with writing. They're in very different parts of YouTube, pretty big channels. And it started with, they post a video. I'm going to kind of summarize this. This isn't exactly what happened, but I'm not trying to like call anybody out. So generally it looks like this. The thumbnail is just a simple picture of the person looking kind of sad. And the headline or the title will be like, we need to talk, or I've never shared this before, or something that's pretty clickbaity, but that tells you that they're going to share something upsetting and personal or whatever. And then you click on the video, and the first half, even up to 75% of it, is talking about, and hear me out through the end of this, please, talking about a mental health issue that they've been having. And the tears come, and it's riveting because it feels real. It's that authenticity that we're searching for. And I'm not saying it's not real. I appreciate it when people share their mental health stuff online. I think there's like a real value to that. It lets the rest of us know we're not alone if we're experiencing the same thing. And it can be healing to share with people, right? So please don't think I'm knocking that. But then we get to the part of the video where they say, while wiping their tears away, and that's why I'm so happy that today's video is sponsored by BetterHelp. And then they go on to talk about how BetterHelp, which is some kind of thing that hooks you up with a therapist you can Zoom with, I don't know the details about it, really helped them. And maybe it did. But the fact is, I realized at that point that I have just sat through a whole video that the person filmed not because they wanted to, like, the initiation wasn't that they wanted to share this part of themselves. The initiation was the sponsorship. And then they built the authenticity around it, and that's not authentic to me. It makes me feel like I've been duped. And honestly, I have stopped watching those people because I then started to notice that every video that they made is built around the sponsorship. They're trying so hard to make it organic, but it's just not. And I think that people, viewers, consumers of any kind of content, we're starting to see through that more and more. I feel the same way, and just to shift over here entirely, I feel the same way about AI generated content, which is such a meaty topic and such a obviously heated one nowadays. There's a lot of fear around AI for artists, and rightfully so. And I have seen a lot of, so I'll give you another example. I was watching a video the other day, and it was all, there was footage, I can't remember what the topic was. It was some kind of like, I don't know, it was like a top 10 kind of video. And so it was all footage with a voiceover. And the voiceover, I noticed within the first minute or so, for a second I thought maybe this person is like, English is their second language, but it didn't take me long to figure out that wasn't it, because I used to be an ESL teacher and I don't know, something about it was like, no, that's not what this is. This is a very good AI voice, or maybe even a real human voice reading AI generated content. The English was just like, it had just that sheen of uncanny valley. It was barely there. It was almost perfect, but it wasn't. And not in a way that said this isn't a native speaker. In a way that said this is AI churning out something that is just almost perfect, but not quite. And when I looked at the comments, not a lot of people had picked up on it. Some people picked up on some things he said that were off, but no one had yet, as of yet, pointed out that it was AI. But I think we're going to, the more AI stuff that's out there, the better we're all going to get at kind of sussing it out. What does this have to do with anything? I think it has to do with that search for authenticity. I think that this pressure that is we perceive, and again, for good reason, coming from industry gatekeepers, whatever industry you work in, to build a brand, we're starting to pull away from it more and more as artists, because we realize that if I am a brand, I am not authentic, because everything I do has to fit within that brand. As the article says, you can see this tension play out in the rise of day in my life videos, where authors and artists film themselves throughout their days and edit them into short TikToks or reels. Despite the fact that for most people the act of writing looks very boring, author content creators succeed by making the visually uninteresting labor of typing on a laptop worthwhile to watch. You'll see a lot of cottagecore-esque videos where the writer will sip tea by the fireplace against the soundtrack of Wes Anderson, or wake up in a forest cabin and read by a river, or women like this Oxford University student who dresses up like literary characters and films herself working on her novel. Videos like these emulate the romantic ideal of solitary genius artistry, evoking a time when writing was seen as a more pure or quaint profession. Yet what they best represent is the current state of art, where artists must skillfully package themselves as products for buyers to consume. And that is exhausting, and nobody wants to be that. I am not a brand. I am an author, and that is all I want to be. Especially when it comes to algorithms, and we're just going to have to talk about TikTok, because TikTok, in regards to what I do, which is writing books, TikTok is by far the biggest thing of all the social media platforms you could be on. It is the one thing that is like leading to, for the artists who break out on there, the most meaningful sales. There was actually a piece on PBS about this recently.
At the Rip Modest, Leah Koch has no doubt about its impact.
I cannot deny the tangible financial impact that TikTok has had on my business.
You feel it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in a literal way. I don't mean like, I mean people talk about a book on TikTok and then they come and they buy the book.
Oh, and you see the immediate response?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In a way that we didn't with Instagram and Twitter and Facebook.
And you guys know I'm not a fan of TikTok, but I am not going to bash anything that leads to amazing sales for indie bookstores. I think that's fabulous. I think it's great that there are so many passionate readers on Book Talk, and that part of it I love. Okay, so don't get me wrong. It's the pressure on me as an author to build that kind of presence because, one, there aren't that many Colleen Hoovers. Not many artists actually do break out on that level. And two, the TikTok algorithm, and this is true of a lot of social media, various algorithms, relies on you. Just if you really want to break out, you have to participate in certain trends or things that are happening. Or as the article puts it, you've got to actually spend your time doing this stuff on the off chance that the algorithm picks it up and people care about what you have to say. You've got to spend your time doing this even though it's corny and cringe and your friends from high school or college will probably laugh as you try to become an influencer. You've got to do it even when you feel like you have absolutely nothing to say because the algorithm demands you post anyway. You have to do it even if you're from a culture where doing any self-promotion is looked upon as inherently negative, or if you're a woman for whom bragging carries an even greater social stigma than it already does. You've got to do it even though the coolest thing you can do is not have to. You've got to offer your content to the hellish, overstuffed, harassment-laden, uber-competitive attention economy because otherwise no one will know who you are. And the odds are still stacked against you. I understand that book talk, for a small fraction of books, has led to incredible, mind-boggling sales. I really do get that. But it's still suggesting that authors get on TikTok in an effort to make that happen is throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing if it sticks or not. It's a gamble, and you're probably going to lose. And it takes so much time and effort because you can't just like upload 1 or 2 cute videos and hope they take off. You've got to be consistent. You have to upload pretty regularly. In the case of TikTok, I think daily is the recommendation. And those videos are short, but they take time to edit. And it's time that we could be spent actually creating something new. And that's why there's a whole ton of authors, musicians, artists on TikTok who are talking about how being on there gave them a boost maybe in their sales, but they haven't created anything new since because they're so busy maintaining their TikTok presence. That's not what any of us signed up to do. I can't help but think about, you guys remember the movie The Incredibles? The villain was Syndrome. It was a world where there was a select small population of superheroes, and Syndrome was not a superhero, and he created a way to manufacture himself into a superhero because, as he put it,
and when everyone's super, no one will be.
If everyone's an influencer, no one is. The thing about TikTok, I think that's so appealing and that was brilliant, and the reason it took off as a platform years ago is because unlike YouTube, unlike Instagram, which I think is notoriously the worst, those algorithms make it hard to grow a following. TikTok makes it easy. From what I understand, compared to everything else, on TikTok you can get on there and if you start making some videos, even if the quality's not that great, you're gonna get your ego will be rewarded in a pretty good number of views and followers right off the bat. Again, compared to Instagram, compared to YouTube, compared to these platforms where it's a slog to get to like 100 subscribers even. And that's great because it makes us feel good. It's a little dopamine hit every time you get a like or a subscribe or whatever. But if everyone's an influencer, no one is. If everyone on TikTok can just get up to a couple 100,000, followers, well, guess what? Publishers and record labels and Hollywood, 100,000, that doesn't mean anything anymore. Do you have 1 million? Okay, cool. Well, let's all get to 1 million. Then what? You know what I mean? Like, those numbers actually are meaningless when everyone is getting big numbers. It doesn't mean anything. And again, and this is the thing that I just really wish industry folks, I know they know this. It doesn't translate to sales. Just because you have 1 million followers doesn't mean 1 million people, or even 20% of that, are going to be willing to pay $20 for a hardcover novel written by you. I was talking with a friend about this, and we were like, we knew between the two of us, we knew so many people, we know people currently who are on marketing teams at publishing houses, who are publicists, who are incredibly good at their jobs and very savvy. We know they know everything I just said. They know it's a gamble. And this is just total speculation, but my belief is that the reason we are, as authors, getting this pressure from them is because they are getting that pressure from C-suite, from the higher ups, who, again, my own speculation, don't really care about the art and only care about the money, and, you know, want all the authors they publish, or at least as many as possible, to be Colleen Hoover. And as for the rest of it, we don't care. You guys, it is not coming from the editors. It is not coming from your publicists. It is not coming from the marketing teams. These are people that like got into this work, for which, by the way, they are criminally underpaid, because they do love books, okay? It is the higher ups. And I have said this in past videos, but I'm going to go ahead and say it again. If Hollywood and publishing houses and, you know, all of these industries are super interested in using AI to replace some work like copy editing or even creating, which, put a pin in that, we'll come back to it later, I would suggest that the actual way to save the most money is to replace the highest salary. So let's replace our C-suites with AI and let them just kind of do the managing, because I think AI could handle that, and let the rest of us get down to the business of actual creation for livable wages this time, because we could take those millions and millions that you guys make and filter it out with like actual good salaries for your writing staff, for your editorial staff, and competitive advances for authors. Just a thought. And that way we could focus on creation. Okay, yeah. That article got me a little bit heated, and there's a lot more. It's really long. Again, I will link it down below, but I will just say this. My own personal status update right now. I am still on submission. Have not heard anything since the last time I updated you guys, so roughly half of the list has not responded yet. And this week, if you were following my shorts series, Author on the Road, you will know this. I started 2 projects this week. My thriller novel, which I started drafting, and a middle grade fantasy novel, which I have started brainstorming. And the way I have done this is I am alternating and setting a timer every day at some point during the day, 30 minutes to work on the thriller, the next day 30 minutes to work on the fantasy, back and forth and back and forth. And that is, somebody asked on the live stream Wednesday, how do you balance 2 projects at once? This is how I do it. I like them to be in different stages, outlining or drafting or brainstorming or editing, and I just go back and forth between the 2, because every time I do, I'm getting a break from one and I'm working on the other, and then I get a break from that one and I come back to it refreshed the day after that, if that makes sense. And it's been going great. I started with the middle grade fantasy. I hit that 30-minute timer and I was feeling overwhelmed, like I don't even know where to start with this. Once I got going, I blew past it, and I ended up doing 90 minutes that day on that project because I was just having so much fun with it. Same thing with the thriller. I started drafting it and I was having so much fun in that first chapter, really just like taking my time with the words and trying to find the right voice. And I'm having a blast with both. Now, adult thrillers and middle grade fantasies are 2 genres where I would say it is pretty darn hard to break into right now. I think my chances of going anywhere in terms of publication or traditional publication with these books is slim. And I don't care. Because, like I said in my last video, I think the middle grade I have on submission right now actually does fit the trends in a lot of ways. And it's still been out since October and I haven't heard anything. And I loved working on that book. It just happened to work out that it fit the trends. But I refuse to waste any of my creative time working on something that I think the market is going to want, especially when I don't have a brand and I don't have a platform, and I am not willing to do any of those things at the expense of my love for writing. So that was my rant for the day. Please feel free to sound off in the comments below, especially if you read the article. I would love to know what you thought about it. I'll see you guys next week with another video. Bye.